I'm Barry Kislowitz, and welcome back to another episode of Leadership Lenses, the 15-minute podcast designed for busy principals, heads of school, Rosh Yeshivas Menalim, other leaders who want to improve the state of Jewish education, or maybe just improve the world a little bit. Today's episode, we're going to focus on one of the simplest but most commonly raised dilemmas that I get as a coach. And this comes up, I would say, with almost every single head and every single principal I work with. It seems super simple, but it proves to be a really, really challenging one to circumvent. The dilemma and the challenge is escaping your office, right? So I don't mean literally escaping, although as a side note, my own office when I was a head of school had a front door and a back door, which I won't admit to how many times I used, but definitely used it a couple times to make a quick getaway. And when I was hosting a school tour for representatives of a large network of private schools, one of them told me that in their network, the building manual actually states that every principal's office needs to have a back door. And I thought that was brilliant, although a little bit scary in terms of what they were worrying was going to happen in their schools. That aside, assuming you have one door, or even if you have two, what traps principals and heads in their office is not usually somebody blocking the door as much as it is meetings, emails, tasks. I know there were a lot of days where I personally came into my office at, let's say, 8 a.m. for my first meeting. I looked up at the clock and it was 4:30 p.m. I hadn't left. The kids had just about all left school by that point, and I was still in my office. The kids could have been there. They could have not been there. It wouldn't have necessarily made a difference because I spent the whole day sitting there meeting with people. And the truth is, it's not a problem limited to me. It's not a problem limited to you or to Jewish day school heads and principals at all. Michael Fullan, one of the real gurus of educational change for the last 25 years, did an amazing survey of where principals' time goes and how often they're stuck in versus get out of their office. And the results were really astonishing in that some principals were spending 90 to 95% of their time behind their desk. Other principals were spending about 50% of their time in their office and the other 50 out in the hallway. And he identified and researched and looked at the fact that those who were out of their office more tended to be those who had the largest impact on their schools. Now, it may seem simple on the one hand, right? If you're out there with teachers, with students, walking the hallways, sitting in classes, you're going to be more connected and more able to impact your school. But on the other hand, there's a lot of meetings. When I was a head, I remember getting about 250 emails a day. Those I'm working with tell me that they're at 250 emails still, but add to that a few hundred WhatsApps and texts and other forms of communication that could really take up your entire day just running on that treadmill. I encourage them across the board to step out of the office and walk around. And usually what I hear in response is, okay, but how am I going to get anything done? How am I going to get everything done if I make a bunch of time to be out of the office? Or let's say we've agreed in this case, and this happened recently where someone was telling me, you know what, I buy it. I want to be out of my office. And I intended to be out of my office for at least 15 minutes every day this week. Might not sound like a lot, but it was a first step. And then they said, I meant to. I didn't do it. I didn't even do it once, because once you sit down in your office, things start to pile up. You've got a lot of things to respond to. And again, the phone rings, texts, emails, and you feel this weight of how can I get everything done? And so you get stuck there. No matter how many times you get pushed, it may always be a challenge. But I took step one with this particular principal. I said, why don't you put it in your calendar, right? Put 15 to 20 minutes at a different time each day. Make it a repeating appointment to walk around. They tried that. A little while later, we checked in and they said, it doesn't really work because I know that it's a walk around. My assistant knows it's a walk around. If there's an issue with a teacher or a parent and they've got to squeeze another meeting in, they just book right over it. So we tried a little bit of a different technique, and it was helpful both in terms of the principal's assistant, but I would say even more so in terms of the principal's way of thinking of it. Instead of putting walk around on their calendar, they started putting meeting with blank on their calendar. And they would pick a teacher's name, right? Meeting with Mrs. Schwartz, meeting with Rabbi White, whatever it might be, all teachers in the school, and there legitimately was a meeting with them. It just wasn't happening in the principal's office. The meeting with them was, I'm going to go check out their class. I'm going to be there for a few minutes. Whether it's part of my mini observation cycle or just, a time to pop in and say hi and how are you doing, doesn't really matter. I'm out, I'm around. And what we began to find was that not only did the Mrs. Schwartz meeting help the principal get out of their office, but it enabled them to encounter a whole bunch of things along the way. So again, this is not really a meeting that matters if you're a couple minutes late for, which means that as you're walking down the hallway, you see some kids, you see some teachers, you see something going on through a classroom window, you poke your head in. Ultimately, you get to Mrs. Schwartz's class, you spend a few minutes there, make sure to give her a little bit of feedback afterwards, email, note, quick check-in later that day, just to let her know that you appreciated what you saw, that you're noting something specific that went well. And you keep walking around. And what you find when you start doing this is that there are so many things that you end up taking care of because of the people you meet on the way, whether it's your business office staff, your teachers, your students, a parent in the front lobby, that number one, you get a lot of the things done so they don't end up in the email inbox. And number two, you take that most important shift. And this is really what's behind the shift from in the office to out of the office. In the office, you're much more likely to have transactional interactions. We send an email, we return a text, we get it done, we got a long to-do list, we move through it. When I move out of the office and I'm in the hallway, in a classroom, in the lobby, in somebody else's office even, it makes it much more personal and much more real. And so it's a lot easier to lead myself towards the real relational interactions, the connections, I see you, I see what you're doing, and I'm here. I'm literally here. There's a lot of studies of the concept of presence in leadership and the idea of leadership presence, what it means. On a very, very basic level, it means showing up. If you're in your office the entire day, you're not present for your teachers because they might not see you. Figuring out how to be present for everyone in the right amounts at the right times, that's a subject for a whole different podcast. But understanding that a prerequisite for presence is getting out of the office is key. And so the way, again, we're crafting this, both for the assistant and for you as a leader, is to say, we're setting these up as actual meetings on my calendar. And I know I'm obligated to someone. I've got to get out. I've got to see them. And if somebody else is walking into my office and wants to have a sit down with me in the office, I can legitimately tell them, look, I'm on my way to meet with Rabbi White. I'm sorry. Can we meet, in half an hour, or talk to my assistant and we'll schedule something. We'll make sure to connect. But it enables you to really protect and sanctify that time. And the last thing that these meetings do, right, these quote unquote meetings, is that they focus you when you're doing that walk around, that you're not walking around like a building inspector, right? Your goal is not to walk around and see kids misbehaving or see teachers and, catch them if they're coming late or not doing something the way you would love them to do it in their classroom. You're going to meet Mrs. Schwartz, right? You're going to make a personal connection. And on the way, you may make personal connections with a bunch of other people who you happen to run into. And on the way back, you may make personal connections with other people that you run into. But that walk around time is about shifting the presence, taking it out of the office and focusing it in on the relationships. It's never, ever, ever something that's easy to do, right? Because the barrage of emails and meetings and phone calls and tasks does not stop. But on the other hand, that's almost freeing, right? You're never going to be fully caught up with your email. Most responses you send will create and generate another response back. So there's never going to be a better time in the future. If you don't set up the time now, it's not going to happen. And if you do set up the time, and I've heard this from many of the clients I've worked with who've really had some success with this, is that even 20 minutes a day just brightens your day. It energizes you. It doesn't even matter if you see something special or something negative, positive, whatever it is, you get out from behind your desk and you connect with people. Whether you're an introvert, extrovert, you connect with people and you build those relationships, because this is what we're here for. Relationships, connections, people are at the heart of education. Those are my thoughts on how to balance your time as a principal in the office versus out of the office. And hopefully what you find to be a helpful strategy on how to get there by our pretend or quote unquote meetings with teachers in their classroom. I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. Let me know if you agree, disagree, have a better way of going about this. You can reach me anytime on LinkedIn at Barry Kislowitz or Kislowitz Consulting, Substack Leadership Lenses, or on our website, www.kislowitzconsulting.com. Have a great day and happy leading.